All right, everybody, welcome in. Sorry we are late, but we are back and we are here for a live edition of Patriots Postgame here on CLNS Media, Patriots Press Pass. I'm Mike Kadlick, joined by 98.5 The Sports Hub's Alex Barth. We are here to break down the Patriots' dominant 26-3 win over the Colts today. Plenty of storylines, plenty of things to get to. Patriots, insane defensive performance, 9 sacks on Sam Ehlinger. Colts offense had nowhere to go. We're going to do a quick, like I said, rapid fire. We're going to do sort of a new format here on Patriots Postgame. We're going to do some takeaways. We'll talk about our plays of the game, player of the game, some question marks moving forward. We'll look ahead to next week's bye week. We'll talk about some underrated takes. And we'll quickly go around the league. We'll get you in and out of here in about half hour, 45 minutes. That sound good to you, Alex?
Let's do it.
Perfect. All right. I'll start off, and let's just talk about main takeaways from this game, right? Because everyone's going to look at the defense. But my main takeaway here was that the defense was going to be good in this game because of how bad the Colts offense was set up to be this week. And my takeaway here is that the offense is still just, it's not there. I mean, the offensive line needs to get healthy, but they still just struggle to consistently put up points. And with a defense playing this well against teams that they should play well against, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from them, but I just think that wasn't as much as a surprise or a takeaway here that they played so well. It's the fact that the offense still just can't put up points, and they need to get better, and they need to really put in the work during this bye week. I mean, hold on, Alex, you there? I'm losing you.
Yeah, my big team's done. He's
kind
of cutting in and out. Yeah, you back?
Yes, I'm here.
You back? We got you?
Yep.
All right. I think we got the gist of your big takeaway. My big takeaway is kind of the same in that I like they have some momentum going into the bye week. It's funny. I almost feel like the recharacterization here isn't on this win. Like, I get you want to say, hey, they need to do more. Maybe we don't go all in on this win, but we said the Bears loss was atrocious. The Bears are now rolling. We said the Jets loss was a joke. The Jets knocked off the Bills today. So I think the way the NFL is staggered right now, if you can get a win, you take a win.
Right.
The offense needs to. The offense is a mess. It's a mess. I can't sugarcoat it for you. I know what people want me to do. It's a mess. It's not great, but I think you beat a team in this year's NFL 26-3. You just kind of say, hey, that's another one in the win column, and you move on. And they've got this bye week now to kind of figure out where they want to go from here.
Right. I mean, again, I've said it for 2 straight weeks now. I mean, we sit here and we nitpick, and that's kind of, that's why you do a post-game show. That's why you do a show, is to get into the nitty-gritty of things, right? But it's hard to nitpick a win. And like you said, Mac Jones says it after every single game, win or loss. It's hard to win in the NFL. And it's the most true thing he says every single time, because you have to take your wins when you get them. Because the Patriots now, they are 5-4. They are just on the outside of a wild card spot. So, they don't care that they care that the offense was bad, but they're just out here getting wins. And, like you said, a 26-3 win in the NFL, you can't be upset about it. So, but yeah, that's, again, good news. I mean, Matt Judon, Josh Uche, each have 3 sacks. The first pair of Patriots to have 3 sacks in a game since Andre Tippett and Don Blackman in 1985. So, I mean, the defense was outstanding. They knew we knew that that's what was going to probably happen coming in, right? Because Jonathan Taylor was missing and Sam Ehlinger's in his second NFL start. So, I mean, nothing to take away from that. Judon's a monster. I think right now, call me crazy, but he's probably my defensive player of the year in the NFL because of his impact and them actually winning games. Because the Patriots, without him, their defense would not be where they are right now. And the defense is the main reason why they're winning these types of games. So good stuff there. If you have anything to add on that, but I got a play of the game that I want to get into right away. And if you have anything else before I kind of get into that.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with what you said.
Yeah. All right. Here we go with play of the game, because I think it showed that it's a stupid play of the game and it's a silly play of the game, but I love these kind of things. And it actually showed that this offense actually has some wrinkles. And it was the Jacoby Myers sneak on 3rd and 1.
Okay.
Because I did not think that this team had something like that in them to do that in that kind of situation, because that's something you see from Josh McDaniels, and that's something you haven't seen yet from Patricia. I mean, again, it's not a swing play of the game, but it showed me that Patricia and Judge can think of these things and sometimes call them. And I know that it's crazy, but like they need to be able to do this, and they need to be able to expand on their offense, and to see that they put Jacoby in motion, throw him under center, and get the 1 yard that they did. It shows me that they're actually trying to be creative sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know. We're really going to give Matt Patricia credit for adding depth to the playbook with the QB sneak with the non-QB. Like, that told me they don't feel like they can get a yard. I think they're starting to realize a lot of what I've been saying about Ramondre needs a break, but they won't give it to him by letting the other running backs play. They're doing all this weird stuff. And look, you saw like how I think 3 or 4 receivers had a carry today. Like, JJ Taylor had 1 carry on 5 yards. That's not it. They're scrambling to find offense. I actually took that play as a little alarming. They are scrambling to find offense outside of Ramondre Stevenson, and that's not great because, and here we go again, these bell cow backs, nothing against Ramondre as a player. He's a great player. When you carry that workload over the course of a season, you wear down. And they know that at some point they're going to need to go somewhere else for offense. He had more yards in the first half than the rest of the team put together. I actually didn't do the numbers for the full game, but I think it's close. I can tell you right now, he had 70 of their 203 yards. They're scrambling to find offense somewhere else, and they can't do it right now. And it is a little alarming. My play of the game is the blocked punt. For them to have the special teams performance they did last year, come around, flip it. Outside of Jake Bailey, their special teams were excellent today. Excellent. It was a great play by John Jones, and it was interesting hearing Bill talk about it after the game because it really was. I mean, they lined that up perfectly where they had him kind of motion in and break in, and they knew with the wind which direction he was going to be kicking. So they were able to play the wind and buy some time, or not buy some time, buy some space for Jones to close where they knew Hack was going to be angling himself a certain way. That's old, I think how often over the last 2 or 3 years have, after losses, we sit here and say, well, that's just not them. They normally play fundamentally sound football and situationally good football. And then it sort of became this thing where it's like, well, maybe that's not them anymore. Maybe they really can't do that. That was like old school Bill Belichick, old school Patriots. It was nice to see they still have that in their bag. That was a really, really bit of minutia that they flipped the game on. And I think that play did do a lot in flipping that game. That was major minutia that they flipped the game on. So it's great to see they can still do that. I'd like to see them do it more often. I'd like to see them do it on offense and defense. But it was nice to see that still in the bag.
100%. No, I agree. The other play that it was the play of the game that didn't actually happen, and it was Jacoby Myers catch on the sideline. Mac makes an insanely stupid throw, and it gets tipped up, but I forget who.
That would have been sick, yeah.
It would have been unreal. Myers tiptoe catch on the sideline, and he doesn't get it done. It looks they showed him on the jumbotron. And he was making this stank face that he was like, I just made that happen, and it turns out it didn't happen. But another good play. Did you so the play you're talking about, right? That's the that's the whole thing that has to do with the lefty kicker and the whole bringing that full circle.
No, so that was another element of it. That was a different play. So this was. They knew the wind was blowing towards the Colts bench. So they knew Matt Hack was going to be punting towards that sideline. So,
sure. Okay.
Right. So because he's angling his body that way, he's essentially closer to the jammer on that side of the field. So when they called that play for the punt block, like that was a specific call they had where Jonathan Jones was going to motion in at the last second and then come in at that angle. They called it on that side because it's whatever it is, a foot or two less that John Jones has to cover because the punter's facing him. And that doesn't sound like a lot on that play in that situation. It is. It makes a difference. So it's just this like really niche situational thing that they used to flip the game. That used to be their bread and butter. They haven't really done a lot of that in 2 or 3 years. So it was cool to see that again.
It's Bill Belichick going back to the chess versus checkers that he's been kind of talked about for
the
so long.
The other one you're alluding to, I'll just explain it.
Please, because you mentioned this. Sorry, you mentioned this to me after the game, and I loved it because we didn't touch on it. We wish we did, but go ahead.
And this is why we do the thing that like no transaction is too small, right?
Right.
Marcus Jones didn't have a ton of experience fielding the ball from lefty punters, which matters because the ball rotates the opposite way. It tails differently at the apex of the kick. Like, it's different. That's why Bill loves lefty punters. So what they did this week is they signed what's his first name? Matt Pilardi?
I believe so. Michael Pilardi.
Mike Pilardi. They signed Mike Pilardi, a left-footed punter, to the practice squad and had Marcus Jones work with him ahead of facing a lefty punter in Matt Hack. So he was ready, and Bill talked after the game. He was feeling much more comfortable fielding the punts. He had a couple big returns. So, yeah, that's another one that was just like sort of chess versus checkers.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's stuff that, I mean, I don't know if other teams do it, but we hear it around here so much. These little, you used a great word for it, minutia type things that it's the nitty gritty of the football game that just, it turns it on its head upside down. Let's get into player of the game, and it builds off the play you had just mentioned as your play of the game, and my player of the game is Jonathan Jones. Easy. He had the blocked punt that Schooler picked up and resulted in a touchdown. Ramondre Stevenson, the 3-yard reception for a touchdown. It turned into that 2 plays later. And then he also had a 17-yard pick six, which also turned the game on its head once again. After the game, when we talked to Bill Belichick, he said that these 2 plays it was 14 bonus points is what he called them, the way he called it. And John Jones basically created 14 points for this football team today. I think that you can easily look at a guy like Matt Judon or a guy like Josh Uche and call them the players of the game as well. And I hear that 100%. But I think just the way that John Jones is like, he's this special team stud, then that's kind of what he started out as in the league when he was brought in or when he was drafted or whatnot. And he played special teams, paid his dues there, and now ends up as a stud cornerback playing inside and then outside. And Bill Belichick and McCourty kind of raved about him and just the way he's grown over the last few years here. And I just think again that he grabbed 14 points for this team basically by plays that he made today, and I think he's the player of the game, no doubt.
I'm gonna go with Ramondre just because he was their only source of offense today, and I know it's kind of weird to pick an offensive player after a game like that, but he got them in field goal position a couple times. I mean, like, he single-handedly got them in field goal position a couple times, and they only scored 2 touchdowns in this game. One was kind of in garbage time. This is probably a pretty close game if they don't have Ramondre. Like, how exactly does the offense move the ball without him? They don't get a couple of those field goals. Now it's coming down to crunch time. I saw somebody say this in the chat earlier. If, late, that 7-yard punt from Jake Bailey late in the game, if that had mattered, what that kind of would have done to the outcome. Ramondre did a lot in preventing that from being a reality by helping them get some of those field goals. So I guess really what I'm saying is Nick Folk, but no, Ramondre Stevenson's my player of the game because he was once again their offense. It's we were debating, is it the Mac Jones offense? Is it the Bailey Zappi offense? No, it's the Ramondre Stevenson offense.
Yeah. What you just alluded to my 1B player of the game, if you were going to end up taking Jones and I needed a second guy, was Nick Folk. Yeah. I mean, he's just the most consistent. The Patriots have had consistent kickers for 20, 25 years now, and with, Vinatieri and Gostowski and now Nick Folk, and it's like, I asked Mac after the game, is it, he knows that this offense is in disarray, and he knows that it's tough that they can't get themselves in the end zone when they get in the red zone, but I asked him, like, is it nice to kind of know that you can get close and you're going to get 3 points on the board because Nick Folk he's the most consistent kicker in the NFL, and he makes it easier on the offense to be able to know that, we're going to get some points here. And it's good stuff. A guy who, Max said it, he's had an up and down career. He wasn't great early. He stuck on with the Jets for a few and then was back and forth here when he started, but he's built on it, and he's been a stud. And I have a hot take on Ramondre Stevenson. I think Ramondre is a top 3 running back in the AFC. I don't know if that's that hot, but I think it's him, Eckler, and Derrick Henry. And I mean, he's just a monster. He's a bell cow type.
Nick Chubb? I'm not saying Nick Chubb, but I would put Chubb ahead of Eckler. I guess if we're doing well all around backs, I guess if we're doing well rounded backs in my opinion. He's up there. He's certainly
he's just
there.
he's a stud. He's a little bit underrated, I feel like, around NFL circles. I know everybody raves him out in here, but I don't think he gets as much love as he should. He's a top back in this conference. Stud. All right, let's move into biggest question mark coming away for the game, because we talked about the defense. We haven't. You know what? No, let's talk about the defense a little bit more first, because we haven't given it as much love as we should. Because Matthew Judon, like I said, I mean, he's the best player on this defense. I think he's the defensive player of the year. Leads the NFL now with 11.5 sacks. What else did you see from this defense aside from them just absolutely being able to get after Sam Ehlinger? I mean, their O-line's depleted. The Patriots' defensive line is healthy, and they were all over Sam today. They made it really hard for him to do anything.
Honestly, and Matthew Judon kind of talked about this after the game. There were some coverage sacks in there. I thought they looked good in coverage. They handled the tight ends, which is something we talked about a lot coming into this game. Devin McCourty, Kyle Duggar, obviously. I thought it was a well-rounded day from the defense. Just overall, they tackled. They didn't miss a ton of tackles. There's really, I think, one run that Sam Ehlinger broke a couple of tackles on that were kind of rough, broken tackles. But besides that, I thought it was a well-rounded effort from the defense. Now, what were they working against? The Colts wide receivers are okay. Sam Ehlinger obviously is not good. I accidentally typed in, when I was writing my game story, 985thesportshub.com, Colts linebacker Sam Ehlinger, and I honestly am not sure if that's a typo or a Freudian slip. But the Colts offensive line is no joke. Like, I know that they haven't been great this year, but Quentin Nelson can play. Ryan Kelly can play. Like, I've seen these guys enough to know that there's talent up there, and the Patriots beat them cleanly. So that's really where I give them the most credit. But secondary, it's not like the secondary was bad and the pass rush was bailing them out, because I think we saw that at times early in the season. I wouldn't say that was the case today. I would say it was a well-rounded effort.
Yeah, definitely. The other guy who had a day was Josh Uche, who, like I said, him and Judon were first Patriots teammates to have 3 sacks in a game since Andre Tibbett and Don Blackman in 1985. A Patriots linebacking core who, I guess, we talked about the run stuffing ability they've had with Lawrence Guy and Christian Barmore up front, and we talked about the secondary with Jack Jones and the safety room that's so dominant. The linebackers, and specifically Josh Uche, kind of get a bad rap, and rightfully so. They haven't been outstanding, but Josh Uche had a day today. He was all over Ehlinger as well. 3 sacks, 6 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and hit Ehlinger twice. So I just wanted to give him some love and his kudos there as well, because he was a monster today.
Yeah, totally.
And so again, the defense, like I said in my kind of main takeaway at the beginning, it was kind of expected today. If they didn't have a game like this, you'd almost be more worried than you are excited that they did have it,
sure.
because the Colts were so just a dumpster fire. It was like you knew that the Colts weren't going to score more than 10, 20 points as soon as this game kicked off, because they don't have it. They fired their offensive coordinator. Ehlinger is, again, in his second start. They don't have JT, so they were just a mess, and this is kind of exactly what had to happen, and they made it happen. So, I mean, good on them. Now let's talk about the biggest question marks coming away from this game. Alex, do you want to go first here? What's your biggest sort of player play, anything, just something that we need to continue to look for?
The offensive line. The offensive line is still a massive issue. And Cole Strange getting benched for the second week in a row. First was Isaiah Wynn. Now he's not even starting. And look, Yadni Kajust held his own today. We'll have to look at the tape, but they have no depth at guard. None. Like, I don't think Isaiah Wynn is an NFL guard. He struggled in there. He wasn't as bad as Strange, but he struggled. They can't get 5 guys on the field. They just cannot do it. And you're not going to win games. Mac Jones isn't going to figure things out. The passing game isn't going to figure things out. The running game's not going to be sustainable if you can't block up front, plain and simple. So they got 2 weeks here. I don't know exactly what they do at this point, because it feels like they've pressed every button, but they have to get something figured. And getting David Andrews back will help, certainly. But it's also concerning when your first-round pick can't play without a team captain next to him.
Right.
So the whole Cole Strange thing and Isaiah Wynn and right tackle and left guard, like it's starting to trend towards the it is what it is category. And that's not to say it is as an excuse. That's saying it is what it is, as in, well, they're just going to have to work around it because they can't fix it. And those are really tough holes to work around.
Yeah. My question mark originally, kind of just looking at my notes here, it was the fact that can the Patriots fix this offense? But that was sort of my main takeaway, was that the offense seems pretty much broken. I'm going to go to Jake Bailey, because I don't know what's going on with Jake Bailey. We need a wellness check on that guy, though. I don't know if it's the blocking up front. I don't know. One of the things was Cardona looked like he had a bad snap at one point, which that was him on another shank. So maybe that wasn't entirely his fault. But the punt operation itself is a disaster, and luckily it hasn't came and bit them in the ass yet. And it's like, okay, at least it happened against the Colts, or at least it happened against the Jets, where they kind of had that game in hand at that point. But if there comes a time where they legitimately need Bailey to flip the field like they always had, and he can't do it now, that's a problem for a guy who was an All-Pro before. And just, I don't know if it's the yips. I don't know if it's still an injury. I don't know what it could be, but it's a big question mark, and they need to get it fixed ASAP. Like you said before, and like what we talked about with the play of the game, or when we alluded to it talking about the play of the game, you bring in a guy like Michael Pilardi. Is it to kind of mimic Matt Hawk, or is it to give Bailey some competition, because something's got to be done there, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's getting concerning, especially after they gave him that contract. I know I get, because I talk a lot about punting, I get a ton of questions about it. It's not easily identifiable. You know, I've talked to some, not people with the Patriots about it, like this isn't like a sourced thing, but it's akin to a jump shot or punting. It's kind of like a jump shot or like pitchers or whatever. And what can happen sometimes with the athletes is when you have an injury, you overcompensate in terms of your mechanics, whatever they may be.
Yep.
And then when you get healthy, you no longer need that overcompensation. So you have to go back to your old mechanic, and sometimes guys have trouble finding it. And then it's, you tweak this, and then you tweak that, and then you tweak another thing. And suddenly you're so far from where you were that you can't find your way back. Right. So that would be my guess as to where he's at right now. He had a punt all of last year with an injury. He's trying to readjust to punting without an injury, and he just can't find his motion. Like Cam McCord talked to us last week, like he's not striking the ball in the right spot. Mm-hmm. That to me would be something about either the way he's dropping the ball or the way he's bringing his foot up. I know people are going to say, oh, dropping the ball and bringing your foot up, that's punting. Like, it's a little more nuanced than that.
It is. You see it in their warm-ups. When Bailey warms up, he's walking around just dropping and looking at his foot all day. It's a science. There's a science behind it.
I just think there's something in his mechanic that at some point along the line was altered, and he's trying to go back to it, and he can't find his original swing. It's like golf, right? This happens with golfers a lot. Tiger went through this where he hurt his back. He had to change his swing to compensate for his back. And then when his back was healthy, the swing he'd been doing for the last however long it was no good. So he had to go back and find his original swing. And that's a process. Sometimes you can guys get right back to it. It's not an issue. Sometimes it takes some time. Sometimes guys never get back to it. So I think with Jake Bailey, he's clearly still in that process. The question is, do they believe he's close to snapping out of it? And however far away he is, if they have a feel on it, are they willing to give him that much time? And that we have no way of knowing. That's an internal matter. It's not something like, oh, we've seen this or we've seen that. We're just not going to know until they make a decision. But that is where I would imagine it's at right now.
Yeah. It's a problem that needs a solution soon, because you have, looking ahead past the bye, you have a couple tough opponents where it's not going to be a cakewalk like this week was, and that might come back to bite you if you can't flip the field and you give the team the ball on your side of the field once again.
I mean, you're also going to get late in the year, and there's going to be more wind, and it's going to be wet, and like it's not going to. Today was, I don't want to say it was an easy day to kick because it was pretty windy, but by New England standards,
right,
early November,
yeah,
today was not the worst kicking day. Like, there's going to be worse days than there were today.
Yeah, agreed. Speaking of the punt operation as a whole, special teams, I guess, as a whole, let's get into some, not so much your main takeaway, but your side take, your underrated take of the game. Mine is Marcus Jones is incredibly valuable to this team without even having to play defense as a 4th-round pick. It's like, if you decided let's draft a punt returner, kick returner with a 4th-round pick, this is who you would want to be. It's Marcus Jones, because he came in on this team instantly and is able to just be a huge part of like I said, the punt return, kick return operation, get you the yardage and kind of flip the field when you need it. He knows how to read a fair catch when he has to, right? He knows exactly how to read the blocking scheme when they block it up for him correctly. He doesn't make many mistakes at all. You don't see him go over his head and then bounce to the 1-yard line. He knows how to read the punt game, and it's, like I said, without him even having to play defense, he's incredibly valuable for a 4th-round rookie.
Yeah, mine is I actually think they missed Devontae Parker today. They didn't play well offensively in the red zone, and it took them 2 plays to score from the 2 on the first drive. They couldn't get in on the 3 on the second drive. They got down there. You'd like to think that's where Devontae Parker comes in big. You're going to throw him fades in the back corner. They haven't done that yet this year, but they just look so lost without that as an option. I'd like to think it's something they want to go back to. They got to figure it out on the goal line, because teams are they're going to pack the A gap for Ramondre, because that's kind of their only play right now. I know Mac had that throw out in the flat, but if I'm defending the Patriots in the red zone, I'm just keying in on Ramondre Stevenson. Right. Not even in the red zone. I mean, overall, I'm just keying in on Ramondre Stevenson and making you beat me with somebody else. So I guess it kind of goes back to the take I had before of just they've got to find secondary offense. They don't have it right now. Jacoby, I know, has been at times. He's had a couple big weeks, but the Colts did a good job taking him away today. And they need, I would say he's been him and Ramondre Stevenson have been the primary offense. I think last week the two of them combined for 80% of the touches or something. Whether it's Kendrick Bourne, who had a rough day, whether it's Tyquan Thornton, whether it's Nelson Aguilar, whether it's one of these other backs, whether it's the tight ends, maybe they're getting Hunter Henry going a little bit. They have to find.
Yeah, Henry was okay today.
I think it was their leading receiver today, actually. But
yeah, he was.
It hasn't been consistent. They need to find consistent secondary offensive production.
Yeah, it's tough. They also need
somebody says they have to find an offense, period. The secondary production is what's going to get them there, because when they start proving that some of these guys who can at least be somewhat of a threat, whether it's Henry, whether it's Jonnu, whether it's Kendrick Bourne, whether it's Tyquan, once they start proving that these are guys you actually have to pay a little bit of attention to, it's going to open things back up for Ramondre Stevenson, Jacoby Myers, and those guys can start making plays. So it's all connected. It's not as simple as snapping the fingers and suddenly the offense is better, right? When you say, the offense needs to be better, it's not just, okay, be better. How do they do that? Secondary production is the two big things. Secondary production is a big part of it, and they need to start taking a profit. They need to start. There still seems to be this hesitance towards throwing the ball short of the sticks, not on third down, just overall. I mean, I think they averaged 1.8 yards per play on first and second down because they had so many incompletions. They need to start running setup plays. And that's where the secondary offensive options come in. Those are the guys who are going to get you those setup plays and create opportunities for your big playmakers down the field. So when you say the offense needs to get better, that's what that means. That's how they're going to do it. It's not the offense needs to be better, and all of a sudden that the 400 yards a game. There's an actual process that goes into it. And I think those are two huge parts of that process.
I mean, the play calling, too, still has to greatly improve. Some of it, again, I alluded to, I mean, it was kind of not a joke, but it was kind of hey, they actually showed something with the Jacoby Myers QB sneak, right? But they need to be more dynamic, and they, when they were on the goal line and they ran run to Ramondre shotgun, run to Ramondre in the shotgun, and then 5 wide pass and Mac ends up getting sacked or runs into the defender on the slide. It's that was the most predictable offense you could have ever ran right there. And yeah, they need to get their secondary scoring revamped like they did last year, because Hunter Henry was a guy who was a red zone threat last season. I remember in the Browns game last year, I was actually at the game. I was sitting like in the end zone when they ran like a seam tight pass, pop pass to Hunter Henry in the end zone, and they haven't ran like it seems like anything like that this season to Henry. I mean, they used to run like these flag routes to Henry in the end zone, or I can't remember something else we called it, but it's like they're not scheming anybody up in the red zone, and they're just kind of like you said, they're maybe almost when they get in the red zone, they're like taking a profit to a fault because they're just running and waiting it out and just letting themselves get 3 instead of getting more aggressive and trying to actually get in the end zone.
Yeah, to me, that's just it's not taking a profit. It's just being overly conservative.
Yeah, fair. That's kind of what I was getting at. Just run it, whatever you got it. But
right.
So yeah, that's that. Looking ahead, Patriots are on a bye week next week before they welcome the Jets to Gillette. I guess kind of biggest question mark kind of ties into this, but they need to take these 2 weeks and they need to really get healthy along the offensive line. David Andrews there will be a huge help. That's priority A, and then priority B is just getting in the film room for like literally 2 weeks straight, taking what works on offense and sticking it in the playbook, and taking what doesn't work on offense and throwing it in the trash, and finding out ways to make plays and get themselves in better position to score touchdowns and not field goals on offense. I think that's what they have to do looking ahead in these next 2 weeks.
Well, I think even beyond that, the bye week comes kind of loaded this year. Normally you head into the bye and it's like, all right, week off, see you in 2 weeks. After what happened last year, right, losing 5 of 6 after the bye with the lone win against a bad Jaguars team, there is going to be a lot of noise the next 2 weeks externally about what happened last year. Why did they struggle at the end? How do you avoid that happening again? What are you doing to make sure that doesn't happen again? They can't let that happen again. They can't. I mean, if they do, they're not going to make the playoffs. They have not afforded themselves the same start they did last year. The AFC is much tighter than it was last year. That was really something what happened coming out of the bye. I mean, it was night and day. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Matthew Judon didn't have a single sack. Max starts turning the ball over left and right. It was bad. It was really bad. It is not good football. It's going to be a question these next 2 weeks. What happened last year, and is it going to happen again? So they've got to forget, everything you said. They got to look at the offense and all of that and get healthy. But they've just got to kind of look themselves in the mirror and a lot of guys talked about this game against the Colts as a bit of a redemption. They lost to the Colts coming out of the bye last year. It was a bad loss. It kicked off that whole thing. And from what it sounded like after the game today, talking to players, that was talked about this week. This was very personal, this game today. Yep. They almost need to take that same approach to the bye week. They almost need to treat this like the bye. And I'm kind of saying this tongue in cheek. They almost need to treat the bye week like it was an opponent. The Colts kicked their ass last year. They took it personally. They came out today and they took care of business. The bye week was, whether it's true or not, externally, it looks like the bye week really tripped them up last year. Mm-hmm. That's something that I would think they're going to hear about a lot they're going to hear about it externally. How much they hear about it internally, who knows? But that's something that's going to come up the next couple of weeks.
Well, even after the game, earlier in this week, John Jones said we're not even allowed to talk about the bye week. And that was more so not to...
That was about not overlooking the Colts.
That was not overlooking the Colts. But after the game today, when asked about the bye week, Mac Jones said, well, yeah, we have this and we have the bye week coming up, or whatever you want to call it. So, he doesn't even want to call it a bye week. And that's sort of what they have to do in between those walls, and not call it a bye week, and call it another prep week, call it a reset week. But if you, like you said, take it as 2 weeks off and then back to the grindstone the next, that's not going to cut it. They need to, they need to stay in those walls, and they need to stay, locked in and keep this train moving, because again, it's ugly. Two ugly wins from the offense anyway, but a win's a win, and they're hard to come by in this league. So Patriots beat the Colts 26-3. They are cemented right outside of the playoff hunt right now. I think they're the 8th seed as it currently sits. I know there's an AFC game going on tonight, but I mean they're there.
They're both 5-2. Neither of those teams are going to fall below the Patriots.
Yeah, right. So, But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna get into it more on clnsmedia.com this week. Send out a nice election day state of the Patriots address, taking a look at kind of where they stand at the bye and getting more in depth on it. But I mean, they're right there. They can continue to compete. And I've said it a million times, but in an AFC that was supposed to be dominant and is not nearly as good as it was kind of expected to be, they're right there in the mix. So Patriots again win 26-3. That's our wrap up, but we'll quickly go around the league. Unless you have any closing thoughts on the past before we kind of take a look at some other games, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
I mean, I think people want to hear us talk about Mac Jones.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we can get into it more on Tuesday, but
right, it's so tough to do before you watch the film.
Yeah.
Last week, so remember last week we all came away from that game and said Mac Jones was terrible, and then we watched the film and he actually wasn't as bad as he looked. Mm-hmm. I think this week's going to end up being the inverse of that. I think people are kind of like, oh, you know, he got them in field goal range and it's the kind of game it was. And he wasn't great, but he's fine. He finally didn't throw a pick. That was one of the rougher games I've seen him play. The accuracy wasn't entirely there. I still think the offensive line is a big part of it. I actually think the issues he's having and the issues Brady is having are actually very similar. Now, Brady's better equipped to overcome those issues for a long laundry list of reasons. We would be here all night. But Mac does not know how much time he has in the pocket. He is just kind of bracing for the hit as soon as he gets into the back foot of his drop back, and it's really impacting him. But it looked like it more in this game than maybe in some games in the past. He was nervous back there, and it showed. So maybe the bye week allows him to reset that internal clock a little bit. Maybe getting David Andrews back and the offensive line solidifying things helps him, but not a great game for Mac today. At least that's not what it looked like. I reserved the right to change my mind after I watched the tape, but he really did not seem comfortable today.
Yeah, I agree. He doesn't look comfortable. He hasn't looked comfortable all season, and I do, we see it, they say it, we talk about it, that we're Mac homers, and, we always find an excuse for Mac. But I really, truly think that it really does fall on the offensive line here because, like you said, and that was going to be my point, just finishing it up, is he looks uncomfortable. He looks scattered. He's, like you said, his internal clock is all over the place. He eludes pressure too fast when it's not really there, and then he doesn't see it when it is there, and he slides when he shouldn't slide, and he runs when he should. It's like he's all messed up. And like you said, I don't know if a bye week can really fully do that because you don't get comfortable in game speed action. It's tough to get that clock back on track. It really is.
Right.
Especially with daylight. No, I'm just kidding. But
no, that would have been a good one. And it's like, what's just so annoying about it is that he wasn't like this last year. This isn't like Zach Wilson where he's just bad and he's always been bad. Right. He was so composed in the pocket last year. So you want to think that there's a chance that they can recapture that. And we talked about this in camp where, he's getting sped up, but they can still fix that. It feels like they're racing towards it becoming irreversible. And today was a day where it felt like that because I thought he did have time for most of the day. I thought he did have time to settle himself and get that clock right. And it just never happened.
Yeah. Well, again, like you said, we'll take a look more in depth, and we'll go much more in depth offense and defense on Tuesday's episode of Patriots Beat here on Patriots Press Pass. But that's sort of a quick hitter on this Patriots Colts game. Again, the Pats win 26-3. Get to over 500 for the first time all season, and they head into the bye week just outside the AFC playoff picture. So if we want to quickly just touch on a few games around the league, because Alex, Tom Brady is still the greatest quarterback of all time. Not that would ever change.
I'm actually gonna put my friend on blast here. My buddy Jordan texted me I don't know, midway through the third quarter that game, and he was like, "We need to admit it, Tom Brady's washed." And I was like, really? And he goes, "Yeah, I think he is." And I was like, "Are you watching the game?" What do you? He goes, "Yeah, I think so." And then I just texted him after, and I was like,
"Yeah,
you watched him do this for 21 years." So here everybody's like, "Oh my God, look at what Tom Brady did! Wow!" Why are we impressed? And I don't mean that as an insult to Tom Brady. I actually mean it as a compliment. What, you thought he was going to lose that game?
I knew they were going to score. Yeah.
Right. 44 seconds, 60 yards to go against his own defense at home. That's light work. Of course he was going to do that. I'm a little insulted it took him as long to do it as he – I'm kidding. But,
right.
Like, the impressive part about it is it's not impressive with him anymore. Right. It's what you expect. Like, I saw somebody had the stat, career wins throwing 50 or more passes. Brady is, I think it was like 46 or something like that for him. He's the most all time. The second close player, it's Warren Moon and Dan Marino. Each have 5.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what he does. It's what he does. This is who he is. It's an incredible feat. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. It's fun as hell to watch. I guess I will say I'm impressed. I don't want to say I'm not impressed. I'm impressed. I'm not surprised. And you shouldn't be surprised. I've been watching him do this my whole life. What, I'm going to sit here and be like, oh my God, can you believe he did that?
That was
yeah,
crazy.
I can. I can believe it. I actually very much can believe it. I would not believe it if he didn't do it. It's what he, like, people do things, right? Like, there are people who are just notable for doing things, right? Tom Brady does that. That's what he does.
Yep. And so, again, the Bucs were in jeopardy of falling to 3-6 on the season. Brady keeps them right there. I think they're 4-5, and they're still at the top of the NFC South because of just how bad that entire division is too. So they're probably still going to make the playoffs. People thought that it would be Tom's first playoff miss since 2001 or something, but nope, he's going to stand right there and do it. The other game in the NFL that you texted me about when we were sitting in the Patriots press room there, and it's the Jets win over the Bills because whether you like it or not, folks, Zach Wilson might be a little bit of a winner in this league because they beat the Bills today.
Oh, yeah. Winner. And Jimmy Garoppolo, baby.
He's 6-3. I mean, hey, do we have a little bit of Jimmy G action from Zach Wilson going on?
We do. We have a bad quarterback that turns the ball over.
He bounced back today. He bounced back today and got the Jets a win against the Bills. And he drove them down for a game-winning touchdown drive. He did.
He got the Jets a win against the Bills. He went out and got that win. It wasn't Josh Allen going 18 of 34, 205 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. No, Zach Wilson went out. Who did Josh Wilson play like in that game that everybody was saying after? Josh Allen. Sorry, Josh Allen. Who did Josh Allen play like? Josh Allen had a bad game and everybody said he played like Zach Wilson. I'm not doing this again. I'm not doing this. A bad quarterback plays on a good team and compiles a bunch of wins, so we suddenly pretend he's good. I already have to do it with Jimmy Garoppolo.
It's hard to win football games in the NFL, Alex.
I don't want to do it. It is hard to win football games as a team. It's a lot harder to win them when your quarterback sucks. Teams still manage to do it if they have a ton of talent, but I'm not doing this with the quarterback in the AFC East. I already have to do it with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, credit to the Jets. That defense, and I told you all this last week, that defense is legitimate. That defense is for real. And they have playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. I actually want to look and see what Mike's guy Tyler Conklin did. He did nothing. All right, he did nothing.
I'm looking at it,
But
Garrett Wilson's a stud. 8 catches, 92 yards. He's a legit first-round talent.
Zach Wilson's not. He is.
Michael Carter also carried them on the ground. He had 12 carries for 76 and a touchdown. He averaged over 6 yards a carry. So again, I'm just busting with that. But
no, that's what we do on the show. But I want to say this too. I said over the summer, in the spring, the summer, and everybody's calling me a hater. The Bills' fatal flaw is Josh Allen is wildly inconsistent. That is old. Like, when he's on. He's excellent. But he's not. He can't be that guy for 18 games. He's becoming a little bit of a turnover machine. And
I have a hard time giving him crap like you are right now. Because, again, he's shown that his inconsistency. When he started, he was awful. And he got much more consistent and played much better football a lot more frequently. And he's a freak athlete and can make all the throws.
He wasn't consistent last year.
He was like far more consistent than he ever was, though. And
from
my point being is that okay, go ahead.
Until the playoffs, from week 5 until the second Patriots game, he did not have back-to-back games with a passer rating over 90.
What was their record?
I think they were like 6-4 in that.
Yeah, they did have a little bit of a lull. Yeah. Right.
I'm just saying, they're a talented enough team to overcome turnover performances like that most of the time, but not all of the time. And you're kind of playing with fire. This was a team that was supposed to go undefeated. People were giving them the Super. They won on opening night, and ESPN's tweeting about it like they won the Super Bowl. Yeah. I don't think this is an undue victory lap. I know you think I'm dumping on Josh Allen. I'm more so dumping on the expectations. People saw this shiny thing and they got all distracted. If we just evaluated teams by who they are at their peak, there would be no bad teams in the NFL. Every team would be a Super Bowl contender. Right. People love to throw consistency out the window because they want to look at something for being as fun as it can be. Consistency matters in sports. The Buffalo Bills are not a consistent team. Again, when they're on, they're excellent. When them playing at their peak is probably better than any other team's peak right now.
100%.
But they need to stay there, and they have had trouble doing that. Yeah. They can still win when they're not there, but it becomes a lot harder. That margin for error really shrinks down.
When he flashes back to like his 2018 Josh Allen days, it's over for the Bills, and it's happened more often than not this year compared to last year. So,
well, because I think what teams figured out, his passer rating when he's targeting Stephon Diggs this year is over 100. It's like 60 when he targets everybody else. And I think teams are starting to figure that out. Like, because that was the whole thing. It was like, you got to guard Stephon Diggs. You got to guard Gabriel Davis. You got to guard Dawson Knox.
And Isaiah McKenzie sucks, by the way.
Yeah, he's just fast. I think teams are figuring out now, like, if you take away Stephon Diggs, he panics. Josh Allen. He sort of panics. So, again, the blueprints, remember, Mahomes was unbeatable, and Patrick Mahomes is still very good. I think he's the best quarterback in the league right now, personally.
He is, yeah.
But there are ways to beat him if you have the right personnel, and not anybody can show up and beat him, but I think Tennessee's winning right now. We're recording this during the game.
Yeah.
You can, if you have the right personnel, there's a blueprint, right? Lamar Jackson was unbeatable at one point. Nobody was, he's MVP. He was so young. Oh, he's going to run the league for 10 years. Remember, we had all the talk over the summer. How are you going to get by Joe Burrow for the next 10 years? How are you going to get by Justin Herbert for the next 10 years? Yeah. There's yet to be a quarterback in this league outside of the guy playing in Tampa that there is no blueprint for. And I just don't.
I think Mahomes is in that class. I do.
There's a blueprint for. It's not easy. It's really hard. You have to have very specific personnel to do it. But there is a way. So when I say blueprint, right, is there a certain defensive strategy you can use that gives the guy trouble? It's not just having great players. Right. If you have. It's basically what the Patriots used it on him, and when they had their peak defensive personnel, they could make it work. And the Titans have made it work as well. You don't rush to sack. You rush to contain. You keep him in the pocket, and you take away Tyreek Hill or whoever's in that role. And then you hit Travis Kelce at the line. Basically, that's the blueprint for Mahomes, is you don't let him escape. Don't worry about sacking him. Don't let him escape the pocket and force him to throw underneath Travis Kelce and work his way up the field. He will eventually get impatient. Actually, the Bills did this. He will eventually get impatient and make a bad throw. And if you can capitalize on the turnover, that is how you stop Patrick Mahomes. It is much harder said than done, or much easier said than done. You need very specific high-level personnel to do it.
Right, you need the game plan and you need the personnel. Correct. Exactly.
Right. I just refuse to believe Josh Allen's the first blueprint. Even with Brady, there's a blueprint. Rush up the middle, take away the stuff underneath, force him to throw outside to the boundary while there's rushers in his face. I refuse to believe Josh Allen's the first blueprint-proof quarterback. I just don't think he is, because I don't think that player will ever exist. I don't. So I think you're kind of seeing it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Last game we'll hit on before we get out of here is Dolphins versus Bears, because the AFC East is, dare I say, loaded right now. The Dolphins beat the Bears 35-32. Tua looks like a Alabama version of Tua. He goes 21 of 30 for 302 yards and 3 touchdowns. I'm still very much of the opinion that it's Mike McDaniel and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and not Tua, but he's good enough to play in that system as probably 20, 25 quarterbacks would be in this league, because it's set up for success down there in Miami. But the Dolphins are 6-3 now. Bills are 6-2, and the Jets are 6-3, and the Patriots are 5-4. So the entire AFCs could make the playoffs in theory. If they go on, it's in theory they could do it. It'd be tough, but Dolphins get another win. The AFC East is playing really good football.
Yeah, I mean, we got to relook at a lot of these most recent Patriots games. That Bears loss suddenly doesn't look as bad. The Jets win suddenly looks really good. When it comes to Miami, it's just, and I talk about this a ton. You don't just add talent, right? They all have to fit together. You get guys that fit a system, and you put players in a position to succeed. Miami's just done such a perfect job of doing that. Everybody on that offense, whether it's Tua, whether it's Tyreek Hill, whether it's Jalen Waddle, whether it's Mike Gesicki, the running backs, whoever, they're all being elevated by the system. And that's not to say they're not good players, but they are constantly playing to their strengths. And when players play to their strengths, they play better because they're doing the things they're best at. Miami's done a fantastic job of taking good players and only having them do what they're best at. That's ultimately how you should build a football team. They've put the talent around Tua needs. Tua finally looks healthy. I think that's part of it too. I think that hip injury really lingered for a couple years there. Some of the pops back on his throw that really hadn't been there the last couple of years. And maybe that is Tyreek Hill has more opportunity to showcase it, but Miami's the real deal. Miami does kind of look like the real deal for sure.
Yeah, they're a good team. I don't know. I don't have the snap counts in front of me, but newly acquired DN Bradley Chubb only had one tackle. He didn't really do anything.
Yeah, they're going to phase him in.
Exactly, 100%. But the other thing, just looking at doing a little box score review here, is former Patriot Landon Roberts led the Dolphins in tackles today with 9. So
I mean, he can still play. He's a captain.
Yeah, he's a captain there. He used to play fullback here. Patriots could maybe use a fullback in this offense to get the run game going a little bit more. But
they did do. We'll talk about this on Tuesday. They did kind of do some stuff with that.
Yeah, they bring in those tight ends there to kind of block and get some stuff going there too. But that's beside the point. We'll get into that more on Tuesday. Anything else around the league, or we'll wrap this sucker up?
I think we can get into that on Tuesday.
All right, perfect. Sounds like a plan. All right. Well, thank you all again for tuning in. Pardon us for being a little bit late, but that was breakdown. Patriots beat the Colts 26-3. Moved to 5-4 heading into the bye. They're over 500 for the first time in 2022. Me and Alex will be back on Tuesday on Patriots Beat to get more in depth into this Patriots win. Follow Alex on Twitter at RealAlexBarth and read all his stuff at 985thesportshub.com. Catch me on CLNSmedia.com. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Kadlick. The same goes every single time. Again, we'll be back on Tuesday. And until then, thanks for